Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Having people who have like been successful on Medium is really, really useful for me and hopefully for the people who watch. What I'm kind of trying to do is give people actual tangible advice that's more than just the usual, like, write well, write a lot, share your stuff on social media kind of thing. I was hoping you could tell me a bit about like how you came to be on Medium and what factors you can say have led to your success.
My journey has been a little bit unusual to most people. Compressing a series of events, I was working in finance, hating my job. It's your sort of typical office space type cubicle situation where it's hard to be happy in that world. And so I walked away from my job. I dropped my 2 weeks on my job. I built up savings, and it was fall of this year. And I started writing on Medium on a whim. And it's one of my posts started to take off. And so I figured, let me just give this writing thing a try for a while. And I just stuck with it and have been rolling. I was interviewing for jobs, and I was going through this process, and I was secretly hoping I wouldn't get the job in the back of my mind. And I was like, oh, that's not a really good thing to have in the back of my head. And so I started writing on Medium, and they'd started a Quora partner program about a year and a half ago, but it's been sort of chaotic, and there's been a lot of drama, and the money's been all over the place. So it's been far from something that I would bank on being my source of main income. But Medium actually pays you for writing as opposed to Quora paying for questions. On Medium, I had a post that took off, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I figured, hey, I'm going to just try out a post and try and follow the guidelines and see if I can have one take off. And it didn't get curated until like 5 days after I'd written it, which was kind of unusual. And then it just went. And I woke up one day and I had like 300 notifications. And so that was cool. It's zigzagging, but I am growing each month. And I think I just hit 10,000 followers.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congrats. I was reading some of your posts this morning. When I read your posts, they don't read like the way people think that they need to write for Medium, if that makes sense. So I really wanted to ask, like, how did you come to find your writing style? Was it something you've always written like that, or is it something that you found after a lot of experimentation?
It's just sort of an extension of my personality. I'm kind of random and herky-jerky. And so I don't really like I never did great in English class because I hate following rules and stuff like that. It kind of wanders and zigzags sometimes to get to the point. And I'm not really a self-improvement writer either. It's not really what I enjoy. And if you're watching this now and you don't know this already, like self-improvement is where like everyone writes and chases the money on Medium. And so I just try to write about things that I find interesting and spread my wings as much as I can. I have had to adapt a bit to Medium because there's such an over focus on like this self-improvement stuff that if you want to make money, you almost have to dip your toes into that at some point. In terms of style, I enjoy telling stories and sharing experiences from my life. That's what I like doing. And also humor. I love making people laugh and doing that sort of thing.
What's your favorite topic to write in?
I love writing like goofy humor. So here's the problem. So like humor articles don't pay anything on the site. Like there's just the curators won't go anywhere near it. I love writing stuff that's funny that I can share to my friends, but those are usually more like passion pieces that I can like do for fun and laugh and share. But I like writing dating advice too. There's not a lot of guys that are writing dating advice. It's mostly, if you go to like P.S. I Love You and all the major publications in romance, it's mostly women. And it wasn't a strategic decision on my part as much as I'd like to think it was, but it was more just me having experience. I mean, I'm 36 and I've been married before and divorced and had all these girlfriends and done a lot.
When you like sit down to write, do you already know what you're going to write about, or do you just kind of like let the words take you?
My process is basically, I've always got sort of a lead set of drafts that for the week. So every Sunday I set aside 30 minutes to write out. I start with titles. That's the starting point, like a working title. Like I have a draft like the other day that I wrote about how like I almost got arrested because someone in my car, I got pulled over on the side of the road, and this is when I was in JMU in a party town, and there was a guy in my car. I was like the DD, we're driving around, and I'm going to segue here, but this is kind of how it goes. But he ended up having like drugs on him, and they had inspected my car and stashed something in my car, and like I almost got arrested from it. And so, yeah. And so all I'm doing really is I'm just going through my mind, I'm jogging memory, and then I'm putting it down to paper to make sure an outsider would understand it. That's the process when it's the story. When it's a research article, it's usually different. I will listen to like podcasts or read articles and really just make sure I understand it first before I sit down at the keyboard, because you can't just stream your consciousness on something that's got to be backed by research.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's chaotic, and if I feel like the article is all over the place and I can't get it to where I want it to be, because sometimes it is painful getting through these. One thing I do is I will take the best sentences and move them to the top, and move the weaker ones to the bottom. Without any sort of context, I'll force myself to rank the thoughts and the paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, something's just not going to work. I have drafts that will never be finished because they're just not good.
I want to ask you a bit more about your writing process. So it sounds like it's pretty, like you start off with a structure, like on a weekly basis and on a story basis, where you have your Sundays where you sit down for 30 minutes and just sort of brainstorm topics that you think you can write about. And sometimes it goes well and you've got what would turn into your headers in the longer post. Yeah, and then some pieces that you try and they need a lot more workshopping before they can turn into a full story. And then there are the ones where you try and then they just don't go anywhere, and you know like when to cut that loose.
Yeah, writing the easy stuff is easy to talk about, because writing the good stuff that works out well, sometimes you write something and it just flows and and it just spits itself out and it's done and it's great. But like 80% of the time it's the other side where you're sort of fighting with it, and learning to like get used to that struggle on getting a draft to work is something that I don't think a lot of writers are prepared for, and I think it's what weeds a lot of them out. Outside of like the demoralizing feeling of not making any money, which is a reality that I think a lot of new writers in Medium are going to have to face. I try to start and finish with strong sentences and strong ideas. It's sort of, I compare it to a comedy set. A comedian always starts and finishes with his best jokes. So you should do the same thing. Medium is not very good for abstraction. They don't like it, which can be frustrating. So you've got to be very clear with the theme and the ideas. And when you have your title, everything below it should flow into that title. Like it should all support it. The subtitles should support the title, each one, and everything below the subtitle should support the subtitle, should support the title. It should all sort of be like a waterfall effect in an ideal situation. But I don't always do that. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of have, you know what the rules are, and sometimes you choose to do them, and other times because you love writing, not writing for Medium's curators, you do stuff for yourself.
Yeah, and it's sort of this weird, so, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this. The Medium is like this amazing place where you can write and you can make great money. Like Medium is paying legit money to writers who are doing their job right, and they're generating traction and they're bringing in new members. You can make I'm making better money than I made as a financial analyst. It's
wow, great. That's amazing.
And but each month you're starting from zero. You know, every month you've got to earn, you've got to produce. And so, it can be challenging sometimes. And the thing about curation, though, is, because they're in the world, curators are working in the world that I used to work in for a long time. They're working in a corporate world where they're concerned about their job security and they're trying to follow their own rules. And so that's good, and I applaud that. But it also can make them very risk averse if they see some type of writing that they're not familiar with.
More experimental, or like doesn't tick all the boxes.
Yeah, and so as a writer and as writers, that can it can be in the back of your head, and that can inhibit creativity. So it's very hard to walk that line between being original and not straying outside of the box too much to scare the curator. There's literally no incentive for them to take a chance on different types of writing. And I'm not trying to be too cynical here, but it is just part of the process and the lifestyle of writing a medium. So.
Yeah, I guess it's like anything else. Like you could just write a stream of consciousness and put it on press or whatever. But if you want to be successful, you have to at least know how to play by the rules, so that if you want to, you can choose to break them and see how things go. But
it's tough. So
that's one of the things I personally like. I'm sure you get the same thing. Like people on Medium see that you do really well and they're like, how do you do it? Like, what's your secret to success? And a lot of times they don't want to hear that the answer is just learn what Medium's rules are, don't complain about them, and play by them, and you'll do well. It is that easy. It's
the nature of the game. I mean, and I feel for anyone that is, if you're starting from zero and you're joining Medium and you want to make a living as a writer, and you don't have other platforms to support you, or you don't have a lot of experience in writing, you're going to be in for a long journey. It's not easy. It's not something that's going to happen in a month or 2 months. And the thing I would say to people that are starting off on Medium, they want to make a living and they want to make money in Medium. You need to, if you look at a lot of the best writers in Medium, they were here before it became even a partner program. And a lot of them just wrote about things they enjoyed writing about. And that's kind of where I come from too. I wrote like 4,000 pieces before I ever like came to Medium.
Yeah.
And I wrote about things that were fun to write about, that I enjoyed writing about, that involved the learning process for them was fun, and I could share them with people, and I knew lots of people would read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if people are starting from zero and they see these people making this huge money on the site, which if you guys don't know, like there's people on Medium that make $15,000, $20,000 a month.
It's
writing on a website. I mean, it's amazing. And so I would tell them, you know, find out what you enjoy writing about, because if you're not enjoying the process of writing and you're not actively like trying to get better at writing as you do it, you don't have a chance in the world of doing it. You're gonna make like, and if you check your earnings the first 2 months, even if you're already good, it's still not going to be impressive, like, or good. So
the last thing I will ask is, what do you think makes you stand out on Medium?
I'm concise. I don't like long-winded writing. Your reader should come away feeling like their time was well spent. If they come away and they feel like, ugh, and they're like, they got through it, they'll never read your stuff again. Like, it should get to the point. You shouldn't be servicing your ego or your long story to get this piece done. I try to tell lots of stories. That's always been a big part of what I do. There's a reason that storytelling has been a way of passing information for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Very effective, and it sticks in people's minds. So if you can find ways to work those narratives into your writing, you're going to do well. I try to just be as honest as I can. I try to stay humble. I think that if you look at Medium, there's a lot of people out there that do this sort of the flex writing where they're showing off their cars or how much money they're making and all these things. And that's fine and good. That's a way of doing it. But I think for the audience that I go for, they're not really into that sort of stuff. I'm not afraid to share mistakes too. I talk about screw-ups I had all the time. I think that's relatable, and people have got to be willing to go there and be honest, because everyone's got a lot of regrets and things they've done wrong, and sharing what you've learned from that can help other people. The truth is, like, getting good at writing is like getting good at literally anything. It's 1,000 little nuances that you like improve at. You're looking at sentences and sort of neurotically like going, can I make this shorter somehow? Like, what is this word saying about the piece? Is the emotion like kind of pretentious? Like, one thing I do is I try to write for the most cynical reader in the audience. So I try to think of like the person who's the most bored, who is in a bad mood, and I try to focus and see if I can keep their attention, that hypothetical figure. And I think because I think if I can keep his attention, I can keep anyone's attention.
Right.
And if you're not having fun writing it, you're not going to make it either. So.
Yeah. All right. I think that's the rest of my questions. Thank you so much for being a part of my video. I've really enjoyed having you on, and you've had a lot of really wise words, both for people with an existing audience who are moving to Medium, but also for just writers in general. And I really liked your thoughts on curation, especially because it's such a ball ache to try to be curated, and sometimes it feels like you're punished for experimenting, and I hate that. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.